In light of President Bola Tinubu's recent announcements that Nigeria spends 2 trillion naira monthly on fuel imports, significant questions arise about the nation's energy strategy. Controversies surrounding fuel quality, regulatory actions, and the 11.34 trillion naira spent on refinery maintenance over a decade raise questions about the efficiency and viability of the country's refining capacity. What needs to be done? And will leveraging Nigeria's vast natural gas reserves provide some sort of solution to these challenges? Gbolahan Olojede, financial experts with experience in the oil and gas industry, will be helping us understand this better. Thank you so much, Gbolahan Olojede, for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So let's start by getting your opinion about what your reading of the president's announcement is as regards the nation spending 2 trillion naira monthly on fuel importation.
Well, it's neither here nor there. That is the data that he has been provided. And he went out to make it public. Is the data correct? We don't know for sure. And the reason is simple. Fundamental information about consumption has been a mystery in this country. I believe purposefully so. So as we speak today, I don't think there is anybody that will be bold enough to be certain about what is the consumption of Nigeria. Consumption is what will drive the volume of subsidy that you can have in that space. So if you don't even know your consumption, how do you determine the subsidy? How do you know if the subsidy being provided is correct? The subsidy information being provided, how do you know it is correct? I still remember very vividly the former Minister of State for Petroleum, Timothy Silva, in 2022. I'm sure if you Google it, you'll find it. He said he doesn't find the information reliable. He doesn't know what is our consumption. So if the minister in charge, who was also a board member of the NNPC, did not know the consumption figure, who am I to validate what the president is saying?
That's quite interesting, talking about data uncertainty or probably data inaccuracy. But then, Gbolahan, if you would add all that to the cost or the amount the nation has actually spent on the turnaround maintenance also of the refineries over the past decade, according to the president, talking about 11.34 trillion naira between 2013 and 2023. What comes to your mind when you look at the figures also? Some people have talked about maybe sabotage, maybe a pipe through which funds are being funneled or fizzled away from the Nigerian coffers, or maybe lack of political will to do diligence on this, or probably the capacity of these refineries to even start working?
I think it's a mix of many things, but there is a trend or a thread that runs through the entire chain, and that is the fact that every president will do a turnaround maintenance. So I think the way it probably happens is that there are some, let me use the word, principalities who will always go and meet the president and say, oh, we need to do a turnaround maintenance. And then money will be voted, the turnaround maintenance will be done, just that nothing gets turned around at the end of the day. So since the days of IBB, I'm not really aware of the IBB turnaround maintenance, but I think he also did some. Abacha, I'm very aware. In fact, the term became more popular in the days of the late Abacha. And every president, maybe apart from Abubakar, who was there for a very short time, literally every president did turnaround maintenance. OBJ, Jonathan, everybody. Today, if BAT is no longer there, maybe BAT will still do his own as well. Since everybody has been doing, BAT will most likely do his own. And the next one that is coming will do his own. The question is, this thing that we're turning around and turning around and turning around, when will it actually be turned around? That is the question. So as it is today, despite the long list of all the presidents that have done the turnaround maintenance, as we speak, what we can say is, okay, we were told that the refineries, at least the Port Harcourt, has reached mechanical completion. So we're waiting for the commercial launch of production in the refinery. And until that happens, because of our history of just mouthing it and nothing happens, we're not so sure. So until that fuel actually start to come out from those refineries, we just keep our fingers.
So invariably, we're talking about some corruption in and the oil industry, just as we had in the steel industry, where about over 30 billion naira is being spent in salaries for the workers there for a particular industry that has not even produced one steel. And you can add that to the response of the chief of the NNPCL chief, that is Mele Kyari, coming out to say that his hands are clean. What do you make of that kind of statement when we have these undocumented or unaccounted for kind of spendings?
Well, it can say that on a personal note, but not on the institution that it represents. Even when OBJ became head of state, that was 1977, I believe. One of the first things he had to resolve was the 2.8 billion naira oil money that was said to be missing. We'd all heard about the Gulf windfall. So the institution that he represents, vividly in 1993, I could remember part of the speech of MKO was about making an NNPC transparent. So you might say, oh, on a personal note, this is not me. I don't get involved in all these things. Yes, an individual can say that, but the institution that he represents has a reputation that is as long as one can remember for being, in the words of the former president, Mr. Jonathan, oily oil industry. That is the reputation of that industry. And there is no way it will not rub off on him because he is the current CEO of that institution. For example, there was a video of him making commitments, I think that was 2019, that these refineries are going to start working before the end of that administration. It's been more than a year since that administration left. We still have not seen a liter of PMS from those institutions. So he owes an explanation. Maybe he doesn't see it that way. When you continue to make commitment and commitment and commitment, it behoves on you to enter that same space and say, oh, this is not going to happen. In fact, before we get to that point, if it is not going to happen, you should tell us, oh, it is not going to happen, and this is the reason it will not happen. But that we will see fuel today, we will see it tomorrow, we will see it day after, and it is not happening. There is no way it will not inform him as an individual, especially when you're leading an institution like NNPC that has a reputation for something we don't want to talk about for a very long time. For decades, the reputation of that institution has been like that.
Well, he has actually come out to say that, time is going to talk. So probably we just wait for that, most especially as the issue around oil supply and the Dangote refinery is concerned. So we'll probably wait for that. But then, even as we talk about this, Gbolahan, let's look at the cost implication of what is probable. Should Nigeria continue to, import fuel? Do you think that is more cost effective, or do you think that it would be very, very wise for the Nigerian government as of now to look at state-owned refineries, to look at modular refineries, local refineries, make it more optimal? And just like you said, all these other refineries, Port Harcourt refinery, the Warri refinery, and the other refineries to come on board and begin to operate. So maybe then we can have a bit of a reduction in the price of petrol in the country. What do you think?
My take has always been that we should refine our product. And the reason is simple. Refining is a value-add process. When you conduct a value-add process, you create value. So because you are creating value, you are creating wealth. You are employing people. You are deploying resources. And there are economic consequences for doing that. We even have nations in the world who don't have oil. What they have is refinery. And they will import the oil, they will refine, they will sell. So that is to show that refining is a business on its own that is creating value. So the best thing for us as a country is not just to produce crude. that we are used to just producing commodity and exporting commodity. What a nation. But to also be able to add value to the crude commodity. In some part of the Niger Delta, the crude is literally coming out by itself. Is that so? It requires no work. Something. Is that where we want to stand forever? Just taking out commodities and selling? No, now we need to step it up. We need to refine. If we refine, we will do two things. Number one, we will be able to save those hard-earned dollars that we spend every year buying these refined products. Number two, if all these refineries are working, the chances are that we will produce more than we consume. That figure that we don't know, that consumption, we will produce more than we can consume so that we can export and also earn foreign exchange. So I think it should be no-brainer that where we need to be is to be able to refine. Where the challenge is, because I think, in my opinion, people don't want to work. Otherwise, what we need to be asking ourselves is, what do we need to do to make refining happen? And all the stakeholders will sit together and make it happen. So a situation in which you have a major refiner like Dangote in one place and the regulators are fighting with Dangote, no, that is not the way of a system that will function. What they need to do is sit together, work together, and say, this and these are what we need to make this thing work. This is our own role. This is your own role. And then we chart a way forward and make it happen. That is the way to do it.
I was supposed to be talking about political will in there, and that's been a big challenge for the Nigerian government, for a couple of decades now. But then you talked about the fact that there are some countries who do not even have an oil rig or do not even have oil, but then they have refineries. And I want to believe that you would have heard stories of blending in Malta by a certain company affiliated with Nigeria, and other issues that has to do with the quality of petrol being imported from these international companies. And of course, stories around the Dangote refinery supply challenges. Now, when you put all this together, what do you think should be the best way out? Because it seems to have raised a lot of dust for a couple of weeks now, and all parties are not really coming out with all the truth.
You see, there have been accusations that the regulator itself does not even have its own laboratory. The regulator has not come out to prove them wrong, but to say, no, don't say that. This is where my standard laboratory is located. And this is it. We do all the testing by ourselves. So how are you a regulator if you cannot provide something like that? Okay, it's possible maybe it's outsourced to some other agencies. The reality, though, is that from time to time, we do have field that did not meet the standard. I'm sure you can still remember a couple of years ago, this fuel that came into the country and damaged a lot of people's car. The question is, how did it get in here? How? It was obvious that it was bad fuel. The alcohol content was out of spec. It damaged people's vehicle. And the NNPC was there. What was the role of NNPC? Did somebody test that? Now, that one was an extreme case. What we probably don't realize are all those many other cases that might not be extreme, in which case it will not smell so badly and it will not damage cars, but it's damaging the environment because it contains maybe either the sulfur content is bad, which affect the octane level. So gases that are poisonous are being released into the atmosphere. So when you have this kind of situations, it poses a challenge to NNPC to say, look, am I really on top of this, my game? And that's those kind of, we're not sure that we have ended a season in which we will never see them again. I mean, I listened to Mr. Kerry saying, the fuel that was bad, we had no hand in it and all the rest. But you are the regulator now. Fuel that will come into the system. And we know that as far as PMS is concerned, it is only you that is importing this PMS, or at least importing 90% of it. all the marketers are coming to you to buy it. So if the fuel that came into the country doesn't smell well, so who shall we blame? We need more honesty in the oil and gas space. I don't know how we're going to get there. More transparency. People being able to say the truth about what is going on. It is better. There's this assumption that we just love to listen to lies. And I don't think it is right. I think we got into a time when Nigerians would rather hear the truth. We are not hearing the truth from that space, from that institution that Mr. Kiari preside upon. And that is why from time to time, this smear will touch him. On the Malta situation, I don't have the details of Malta. I may not be able to speak about it, but what is not in doubt is that there are all sort of deals in that institution. And it is not, like they say on the street, no be today. It has been like that for a while. It has been like that. Is it about to change? We don't know. We can only see the kind of change we want if we put in the political will at the highest level into what is going on in us. Otherwise, as it was in 1977, so is it in 2004. So will it be, world without end.
So, moral-wise, in terms of financial management, in terms of regulatory functions, in terms of infrastructural development, and some other lines like that, even the supply of this crude to would-be buyers, it seems as though that the NNPCL is deficient. And, of course, the independent marketers have come out to say that NNPCL is the sole distributor, or should we say the sole provider. We have a Dangote. Why can't we just either buy directly from NNPCL? That seems not to be forthcoming. Can we buy directly from Dangote? It seems not also to be sitting down well with the power brokers within that sector. What do you think would be needed to ensure that, supply on the supply side, those who are within that value chain of ensuring that it gets from point A to the filling stations are able to get their commodities, the prices can reduce, and all these bottlenecks that we've seen around the inefficiencies on all sides are reduced?
You see, what, in my opinion, the Dangote refinery will do is to try to break the back of an establishment approach and institutional framework of several decades. We are used to the importation, and there are beneficiaries of that status quo that has been there for several years. If there is a project that is going to shake that table, there will be a fight back. There is a fight back. And when there is a fight back, the best way to resolve it from leadership, top leadership, is to put on that patriotic hat and say, what is in the best interest of Nigeria? Once we have determined what is in the best interest of Nigeria, call the stakeholders together, including the elite profiteer or in that space, and have a discussion on how to move forward. Maybe that is part of what the president considered when he said, okay, give crude to Dangote in Naira. It could be part of it because I believe that is a significant step as well. But there is need for more. There are still critical stakeholders who do not want that project to succeed. So we must now make that decision to say, is this project in the national interest? Should it succeed? And then we can support it. I was even reading something from David Dane recently, and he spoke to part of our complexities that we hardly ever speak to. The reality that there are interests that want us to remain the way we are forever. And those interests are both international and domestic. They work together and ensure that nothing ever change in this, nothing will ever change in this country. We just remain as we were, exporting crude and importing refined product till Jesus comes.
Well, that would mean that it seems as though there's a big jinx on the oil and gas industry. But then whether or not that chain can be broken, it's a big question that so many people will need to answer. We will continue to ask that questions to get answers in that line. Gbolahan Olojede, financial expert from the oil and gas industry, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with me on the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm no longer in the oil and gas industry anyway.
Okay, all right. That's good. Thanks for the update anyway.